Welcome, everybody. This is our fourth installment of our Federal Business Applications webinar series. Today is going to be all around accessibility and how that can apply to Section 508 in the federal government space. My name is Steve Winward, and I'm a technical director for our Federal Business Applications practice at Microsoft. Here's a quick overview of what the agenda is going to be. We're going to do a quick community overview in terms of what is this monthly series that we're doing here. We're then going to cover the next 10 minutes in terms of what are product updates specific to the US federal government sovereign cloud space for Power Platform and Dynamics. And then the main event is going to be brought to you by Evan Chalky, who is our group program manager over in the Power Apps team, leading the user interface experience across Power Platform as well as Dynamics 365. And then we'll wrap up with some Q&A. Now, before we get started, I just wanted to share this with everybody. This is our digital event code of conduct. There's a lot of text here, but just to summarize this, we just ask that everybody in the chat or when people come off mute at the end are respectful of other people. If we, Microsoft, feel that you're being disrespectful of anybody in the audience, we do have the right to remove you from the meeting at that point. The other thing I wanted to share with you all is that when we use this in terms of the webinar event, you do sign up with an email. And we just want to be really transparent in terms of what do we use your email for and what do we not use your email for. Specifically, we'll use your email for this monthly series to actually send you a follow-up notice. So after this event, anybody that registered for this event, what we'll do is we'll send you a link to where you can watch this on demand after the fact. We'll also send you a heads up of when there's going to be the next monthly session and how you can register for that. And we also may send you some details in terms of what are some federal government specific updates around Power Platform and Dynamics 365. If at any point that you do not want to get those email notifications, please just reply directly to that and we'll make sure to take you off that list at that point. We've also got a link here and you can check out our privacy statement at Microsoft as well. Now, in terms of the logistics of this, for this event today, we actually have a number of people joining us. So we're going to do this a little bit differently than we've done in the past. If you have a question, please put that in the chat. We do have people that'll be moderating that, and we will try to answer that during the session live. What we're also going to do too is at the end of this session, we're going to cut off the recording and we'll allow people to come off mute at that point. The one thing we do ask is that people just use the raise hand feature inside of Teams, and then we'll be able to go down the list to then have people come off of mute and ask those questions at that point. We also have been doing a ton of stuff to make this series very transparent in terms of what we're doing. On our Federal Business Applications GitHub repository, we have a landing page for this webinar series. And so you can see all of the past recordings, not just this session, but the previous recordings that we've done. All of those are available on YouTube. And when you dive into YouTube, we've actually created bookmarks for the different topics. So it's really easy to find what you want in terms of watching it on demand after the fact. Now, just a quick high level, we wanted to explain kind of where this Federal Business Applications fits into kind of in the landscape of all the products at Microsoft. So on the far left here, we have the Office 365 collaboration tools we all love and use today, which are email, SharePoint, PowerPoint, etc. On the other side of the spectrum, we have our Azure world-class professional developer services. And those are things that you can use to build custom applications for your organization with really robust and rich capabilities inside of that. But in the middle is Power Platform, our low-code platform. And the idea here is to empower more people to be able to build applications. People that don't necessarily have to write C# or JavaScript code to be able to create apps that work both in a browser and on their phone and then distribute those to people in their organization. And then on top of that, we actually have first-party applications built on the Power Platform, which are Dynamics 365 first-party applications. One example of that is customer service. So for any federal agency that has to deal with constituents calling in, and routing that to the appropriate agent, Dynamics 365 customer service does a fantastic job of that out of the box. And so for the purposes of this Federal Business Applications webinar monthly series, these are the products that we're always going to be talking about. It's going to be Dynamics 365 and Power Platform, specific to US federal government. And when I say specific to US federal government, Microsoft has done an incredible job with a big investment in terms of making dedicated sovereign clouds for the US federal government. We have Office 365 and Azure, but we also have Dynamics and Power Platform in those sovereign government regions. And the different flavors of that are GCC, which is Government Community Cloud, GCC High, and DoD. All of those meet a variety of different federal regulations and accreditations. And as a company, we are absolutely committed to meeting the federal government where they are in terms of their requirements to be able to take advantage of the cloud. The other thing I wanted to call out here is that in Microsoft Federal, our CSU is going to be doing a really amazing hackathon event. It's coming up on April 19th to the 21st. And the idea here is to have people to have different teams where federal people can actually start creating, building, and innovating on the Power Platform. And I love kind of what they've put together in terms of their mission statement, which is solutions created for the government, by the government, solving challenges unique to the government. So if you want to check this out, the link there is below, aka.ms/fedhack. We'd love to have you part of that event. Next, I just want to go over a couple of updates that we have specific to our US government cloud for Dynamics and Power Platform. The first one is we now have a great write-up on GitHub of how to integrate login.gov identity with Power Platform. In the specific case here, it would be Power Apps portals and allowing either citizens or federal employees to take advantage of login.gov as a custom identity provider. We've got the documentation down there. Feel free to check that out. If you have questions, you can always reach out to us about that as well. Also wanted to share with you all that specific to Power Automate Desktop, that's our RPA experience in Power Platform, you now have the ability across all of our government clouds to use direct machine connections. The reason why that's beneficial is that up until this point, you would have to use something called the Data Gateway to install that side by side with Power Automate Desktop. Today, you can use direct machine connection, which removes the need to install the Data Gateway for using RPA. We're also excited to say that now CI/CD DevOps pipelines with Power Platform are supported across GCC, GCC High, and DoD. So in the last month, we actually enabled this for DoD, where previously you could only do this in GCC and GCC High. Also wanted to share with you all that in our government sovereign clouds, we don't always have all of the same template apps that you may see in commercial. One example of that is the Book a Room template app. Somebody on my team actually recently exported that from a commercial cloud, put that onto our federal business applications GitHub repo, and we've vetted this out in GCC and GCC High. So if you're one of those customers across one of those clouds, you can now go to our GitHub site, get this sample app, and bring that into your own environment. We also are excited that we have a new integration with GovDelivery. If you've not heard of GovDelivery, they are a company that provides engagement and communication for both state and local government and federal agencies to talk to citizens. And they have a number of different operations that they support. You can do SMS texting, you can do emails, you can do one-to-many emails where people can subscribe to different channels to receive emails on. And what we did is we actually created a custom connector in Power Platform to make it really easy to get started with that. This is also available on our GitHub repository, so it's super simple to get started. So if you bring that in, you'll actually see these different actions out of the box, and you can get started with using that today. GovDelivery is also a FedRAMP solution too. So if you're thinking about doing those kinds of communications, it's a great option to think about. Now, over the last few weeks, we have had a few customers that have asked questions in terms of service level agreements for Power Platform. And I just wanted to share this with everybody that we actually have financially backed SLAs for all of our cloud services. If you just do a search for our service level agreements, you'll find that on our Microsoft website. And here's an example for Power Apps where what you can see is that we commit to 99.9% uptime for Power Apps, the service. If we have any uptime less than that, we'll actually pay you back as the customer in service credits. And if we have lower and lower availability, we'll pay you more and more in terms of a service credit for that. And we think that's something where we're just really proud of the fact that we are committed to making sure that our services are robust and available for all of our customers. And then one other thing we wanted to share on our GitHub repository is if you are an IT admin, you probably do a lot of PowerShell. And we've put together a one-pager of PowerShell where you can go across Office, Power Platform, and Azure and figure out how would you authenticate to that environment if you're a GCC, GCC High, or DoD customer. So if you're doing a lot of PowerShell, this is another great resource to take advantage of. And the last update that we have here is that in the previous event, we mentioned that the new connector experience is going to be landing into GCC High and DoD. Effectively, what this means is that when third-party connectors are enabled in those environments, tenant admins will now have the ability to bring those in to say, this is something I'm comfortable with our organization using, or not enabling that. That experience now is going to be available at the end of this month. Our documentation for that is already live, up and running with that link below, and you can get to that right there. And then lastly, just in terms of connectors in the government cloud space, we do have a few connectors that are not there that you may see in commercial. For that, we actually have a public survey that you can go to, and this goes into the product backlog for the folks that maintain the connectors that are available across our government clouds. So if you see one that you would like to have, this is a great way to have feedback back into that backlog. And lastly, we do have a monthly update to all of the products and features that you can do across GCC, GCC High, and DoD. So if you're wondering, can I use something like Dynamics 365 Field Service in a GCC High environment? This is a great place to check that out. We link this off of our GitHub repository, but that's a short link that you can go to check this out. And it gets updated about once a month as well. And with that, those are all the updates that I want to share with you all. We're going to pass it over now to Evan Shockey. As I mentioned, he's a group program manager in the Power Apps product group, and he's going to be talking to you all today about accessibility and how we can apply that to Section 508. And with that, Evan, please take that away.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate it. So I'm Evan Shockey. I, again, am on the Power Apps team. I also have Nir Balagar with me. He's going to be answering questions in the chat, so feel free to leverage that as we go. And really what I want to do, because I know not everyone is necessarily familiar with Power Platform and kind of where we fit. Steve did a great job of giving us an overview. So we'll start there, and then we're going to keep going deeper. We'll start with just kind of what do we think about? And then we'll go into accessibility in 508 at Microsoft. And then we're going to dive into some demos and really how to apply that as you're building apps on top of Power Apps. So let's go ahead and dig in. So within Microsoft, there's a few things that we start to see. And it's really no matter what industry that you're in, whether it's our commercial customers, whether it's federal, we see three things that really continue to matter. And that's customers need to get value fast. They need to be more agile to respond to things that are shifting across market conditions. And you need to continue to reduce your cost. And those are things that we're really trying to focus on is how do we empower you to do that? As Steve mentioned at the top, there's a few things within Microsoft Cloud that are really unique to us. One is that comprehensive portfolio of technology that really helps you meet your business needs. We have that full stack across the tech adoption, tech capability, pulling those together so that way you can integrate our products end to end. And those products are really open and extensible. And part of those that we're going to focus on today is Microsoft Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform. And that's really the things that we have that, again, build on top of this whole stack. So things like identity and security, we start there. And then as you start to leverage your Azure investments, as you want to start to leverage things that are going on across Microsoft 365, you can do that. And it's really about how do you take the data that you already have and how do we make that approachable to everyone so you can build the apps that you need to help solve those big business problems. One of the things that we see across the board is really this, what we call the digital feedback loop. This is what we see for everyone. It's really how do you take the data and the intelligence that's going on that you're getting from customers or constituents, from your people, from your operations, from different services and products that you offer. And how do you really take those and leverage those? And we have a few different ways that you can start there. So we want to help you leverage that data to move from reactive to proactive. And we have a few things within Dynamics 365. So we have this portfolio of modular purpose-built applications that you can pick from, just like Steve mentioned earlier. Maybe it's field service, maybe it's customer service. We have things that are going to get you started right away. And really, the Power Platform enables those organizations, just like yourself, to build on top of that and to tailor those solutions to meet your exact needs. And that's really what we're going to focus on is how do we help you create that impact faster, right? Break those barriers down, those silos and data, and help you take data that you have across your entire organization and serve that up to your end users when they need it, and be able to adapt to the changes and innovate as you need. In fact, we're seeing a lot of customers that are starting to leverage this. We have tens of thousands of companies every month leveraging Dynamics and the Power Platform. You can see 97% of the Fortune 500. And they're doing this because they know data is that core to their business strategy. And again, we need to be able to help you to take all this different types of data, whether it's analytical, transactional, or even observational, and be able to serve that up to your end users. So again, as we go a bit deeper here, I want to share with you what Power Platform is, in case, again, you just haven't used it before. There's 4 different products that we have that really make up the Power Platform. And all of these are created to help with really what we call low code. And we know that we need to make it easy and approachable in low code, because there's not enough programmers or data scientists or even tech professionals to solve all the needs. So we need to make sure that we can empower everybody to come along and help them solve these needs together. So one is Power BI. So if you haven't used that, that's really a way to visualize data that you have coming in. Think about dashboards and charts and those type of things, and really have that business analytics. Power Apps, which is what we're going to focus on today, is really helps you make applications. Whether those are on the web, on a browser, inside of Teams, or other places, you can very quickly make applications, again, with even low code or no code. Power Automate is how you really want to automate your processes. So imagine data moving around in the background. Maybe you need to get approvals, those type of things. That's really where Power Automate can come in. And then Power Virtual Agents is really around these intelligent virtual agents. So think about chatbots and how you can have your either employees or even constituents talk and get information that they need in real time. And again, do that without having to be a professional developer. Or you can leverage your professional developers to work together with other parts of your organization to even go faster. Okay, so there's a few benefits that we see of low-code app development. One, like we talked about, is really just that increased development agility. It's just so fast to be able to go in, create the application that you need, do it very quickly. You don't take months to create an application. You can literally do it in days or weeks and get that rolled out and provide and get feedback. So the time to development is very quick. You can make an application once and then leverage it on the web, on mobile apps, again, and across all of the office space, which is pretty amazing. So the other thing too is with some of the things that we're doing around AI, which is even low code also, you can start to see new applications where maybe you have an application in space and you want to add AI to it to make it even easier for your end users or solve different types of problems. You can really start to do that. And there's 2 different sides. If we think about traditional application development in the past, you've got your IT experts, and those are experts in security, your governance and compliance, and that's great. And then you have these business experts that really know the problem, maybe interacting with your constituents. And the thing is, how do we bring that together, right? And that's really what low code does. It empowers this partnership to come along to really unlock innovation and be able to go very, very quickly. All right, so let's jump ahead just a little bit and talk about some of the benefits, and you can see them on the screen. So we've seen a number of studies where as you start to leverage low code or no code, your application development costs start to go down. You can really, again, start to build these apps very quickly and start to get a very large return on investment. So where does this fit? Well, sometimes there's really an app that you can start with. Sometimes there's not an app for that, right? And maybe you have to do custom dev. But then as you go through, there's a lot of business use cases that you're going to have that just you can't get to because your backlog is so big. And that's where low code really fits in, and that's where Power Apps fits in. So as we start to think about that, we start to think about, well, again, who is this really for? Who does this unblock? So it's really for everybody. It's for the professional developers. It's for folks that maybe have that business knowledge but have never created an app before. And the spectrum goes end to end. So we go from maybe basic use cases, maybe you have some operational pieces that you want to do, and we're going to allow you to, within the interface, and I'll show that in just a second, it's really this point and click. I can, just like I'm making a PowerPoint, I can drag and drop controls in if I want to. I can build that UI. I can start from a template, just like Steve mentioned earlier. So you can either start from a template, you can start from blank, you can start from what you're used to, and then you can use a lot of Excel-like formulas to get in there, to connect to different data. So that's great. We also want to make sure that everything that we do is governable, so that way you feel comfortable pushing these applications out. You know what's happening across your company, and really from a administration standpoint, we want to eliminate shadow IT, and we've been able to do that because we're really born in the cloud and we're in GCC, GCC High, DoD clouds. You can see what's happening. You know exactly which apps are being built, what connectors they're being used to, and we can scale all the way up, all the way to pro developers. So maybe you want to have an application that you want to roll out to everybody. You can do that and use the technology that you're already accustomed to. Things like Visual Studio, Azure DevOps, right? Be able to reuse the IP and your skills and create that value very, very quickly. So the last thing I want to mention before we go in a bit deeper and we'll really start to focus on accessibility is our connectors. I mentioned this a few times so far. We have over 600 connectors. And again, not all of these are in GCC or GCC High or DoD, but we have that link for you so you can request ones that you don't see. But we have this ability where if there's things that you use, we may have a connector. The nice thing is if there's not a connector, but you have an API to hook up to maybe some system that you're using internally, you can do that too. So you can really start to, again, think about all the different applications that you use today, all the different data sources that your end users need to use. Now you can start to build one application, one UI on top of that, and let them connect in and give them this experience to complete their task as fast as possible, and then go get to that next task or go help another constituent. So a lot of value here across the board. Well, I'm going to take a quick step back. So that's really about Power Platform and where it sits and Power Apps in general, just to make sure that you understand what we're going to be talking about today. So let's talk about Microsoft, right? Our mission is to empower every person in every organization on the planet to achieve more. And we announced this mission a few years ago, and it's a mission that connects back to our earliest days as a company, but it's aimed directly at those opportunities and challenges that we're going to face for decades to come. And this is only attainable if everyone has access and opportunity to achieve more. And that's why accessibility is such a big priority for Microsoft. We cannot realize that mission to empower every person and organization to achieve more without accessibility. And accessibility is really our path to innovation. And we need to empower everyone with the right tools so that anyone can do anything. And that's why this matters. And here's some of the context that we see. There are disabilities that come in forms both visible and unseen. And there's a lot of variation here. There's things where we can provide maybe a spectrum that happens with disability, from things like blindness to mobility. And there's other things that we can't see, like dyslexia, neural disabilities, like bipolar or PTSD. So we want to make sure that we enable you to go create applications that can go help everybody. And it's interesting when you think about these accessible technologies, they can help people that are not disabled, but maybe have situational disabilities. Maybe you're unable to hear a phone call in a noisy environment, or unable to read small text on a mobile device, right? Or unable to use a mouse or a keyboard in a tight space. So we want to help empower you and give you the tools to be able to create these applications. And the need is huge. 15% of the world's population, or about 1 billion people, experience some form of disability. So it's so important to be able to create the applications that are going to be used by everyone in your organization, so that way they can complete those tasks and help solve those problems and really help you innovate. So there's a few things that that we want to do. So we're seeing across the board, and there's a link here to a Forrester impact study with just accessibility, and how that's really helping empower organizations. Again, for things like productivity gain, talent retention, you get increased reach. It's just so incredibly important. And that's one of the things that we're doing internally within Microsoft, is really focused on how do we create a culture of accessibility. You know, being a diverse and inclusive company is just a huge part of the culture that we're trying to build. And we're building this into the DNA of how we create all of our products, and really how we're going to help you create your products. So it starts with the people. I want to make sure we bring in the right folks within Microsoft. We have systems in place, and as we build products, we're just so focused on, is this going to work for everybody? So that's the Microsoft level. I'm going to go a bit deeper here and talk about accessibility within Power Apps. And if you're familiar with Power Apps, you may know that we have two variants of Power Apps. So we have a Canvas app, which really helps you create pixel perfect UI. You can use those data connectors like I mentioned, and it's really, you can create the exact experience that you need for your end users. In here, when you create Power Apps, we actually help you with accessibility, and I'm going to show a demo of that in just a minute. We also have what's called a model-driven app. This is built on top of a data system that we have called Dataverse. And what we do here is we actually build the experience for you. So you start with things like, what table do you want to create, and what columns do you have? And you set those kind of things up, and you can set business rules and security and all kinds of great things. And then rather than you dragging and dropping and picking exactly how you want the layout, we'll do that. So we'll create the layout for you. And these apps conform to Section 508 with our accessibility conformance reports. So we will create that. We'll try our best to make sure that they are compliant. And then off you go. And then you can just deliver that to your end users, and they work on the browser, on a mobile phone. Again, it's pretty amazing. Let's dive into Canvas there for a second, because that one you have to do maybe a little bit more work, because you're creating your user interface. So within Canvas apps, there's a few things that we do to really try to help you out. So we have something called App Checker, and I'm going to show that off in just a second. And we're going to show you the accessibility issues that you may have that we can help you discover. There's certainly more things that you may find, but we want to show you things like being able to view those results for maybe accessible labels that aren't there, or tab stops, or maybe the focus. These kind of things are going to be very helpful when you have users with maybe low vision, and you have a screen reader reading through those. But there's also other pieces too you can start to leverage. This is really your first step guide. We've also been able to provide some guidelines. So we have a number of links that we'll share in just a moment. But this inside the product is a great way to get started, to make sure that you meet the accessibility start. But then you want to take it even further, and again, use some other tools, screen readers, those type of things, to make sure your app is really doing what you expect. So let's get going with a demo. So I'm going to pull over an application that I've already created. So I'm here inside of what we call Canvas Studio. This is the experience for creating an application. And if you haven't seen this before, I'll just walk you through very quickly so you can see what this is about. So as I mentioned, if I want to, let's say, see some screens, I can have different screens within my application. I can insert different types of controls, and that's really as easy as drag and drop if I want a text box or maybe a gallery or a button. So I can do all those kind of things. So I've created this application, and this application is made for mobile phone. So I made it a small application because I knew my use case was for my frontline workers inside of a store, and they needed to go and complete some tasks every day. So I've created my application, looks pretty great. It has some tasks in here that's coming from a different data source. I've got it all mocked up the way that I want it. So the other thing I can do is I can go up here to what we call App Checker. And when I pull up App Checker, there's a few things that I can see. So I can see if there's any errors in my formula. I can see if there's errors in the runtime or maybe any rules. And I can see, I have some performance issues. I might want to address those and take a look. But I also have a lot of accessibility items that I need to address. So I'm going to go ahead and drill into this. And there's a few things that I can do here. So again, right away, I can see, you know what? I created this app in kind of a hurry. I forgot to add all those accessible labels. So that way, if I was to play this, again, things like screen readers just wouldn't have a good experience. And my users wouldn't know where to click or what's happening. So rather than just telling you that there's accessibility issues, we actually take it a step further. So I can go in and I can say, oh, icon 1, okay, let's see what this is all about. And it'll take me directly to this. And it'll not only do that, but it'll bring up and bring me to that property, and I can set that. And I can go a little further too. So I can go in and see the details. And I can see, oh, okay, I'm missing an accessible label. It's on icon 1, and here's how to fix. And here's why to fix. And then I can actually even go further and take a link and go learn more about, how do I make accessible apps? So if I click in there, it's going to take me directly to our doc site. And again, now I can learn even more. I can learn about, how do I create this? What's the layout and color? And what about keyboard support and screen reader support? So we really walk you through. So if it's the first time that you're maybe building an application, or maybe a first time in a while that you're focused on accessible applications, we want to provide that guidance end to end for you, so you know what to do, how to do it, and even next steps. So we have lots of information you can see about how to make an accessible app between structure, keyboard navigation. So we try to walk you through so that way you're ready to go. And when you use Power Apps, you have everything you need to be able to not only very quickly create the application, make sure it's accessible, and then be able to start to roll it out to your users.
Hey, Evan, quick question we've got in the chat here. Karen is asking, in that shot that you're showing right there, there's location icon 1.accessible label. Is there a way to easily kind of figure out like where that is kind of on the canvas?
Yes. So if I go back, I click on it, so it'll pull me in here. Now, the other thing I can do is I can say, where is that? So I can go to icon 1 here, and I can go and see where icon 1 shows up. Oh, it's here in my template. Great. So I know that on my template screen, I can go very quickly find it. And that way I know what it does and where it is.
Awesome. Thank you, Evan.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Any other questions while we're here on this screen? Okay. Well, I'll pull this back. So you can see within Power Apps, we've really tried to, again, give you the experiences that you need. If you'd like for us to create you an app, the Model-Driven Apps is a great place to start, because you'll know that the controls we use, the properties, we as a team, we go through and make sure that we, as we're building our infrastructure and our platform, that we test these type of things out. We want to make sure that screen readers work, that all the different components around accessibility work for you. So Model-Driven Apps would be a great way if you want to get started and maybe not have to worry as much about creating those accessible apps, because we'll do that for you. That's a great place to start. If you say, no, I have these very specific UI cases where I need my end users to go through certain steps, or I want to use certain types of controls, or again, I want to use some of those connectors that are available in your region, Canvas Apps would be a great place to start. And as you can see, you can jump right in at the top and be able to go through and say, okay, we can help you build those accessible apps, at least get you started. There's certainly always more pieces that you want to test out and make sure it's fully accessible and meets your end users' needs. So a few things that's also going on. So we see that there are, again, like I mentioned, huge space coming up where we've seen there's 500 million applications that need to be built in the next 5 years. So we want to make sure that as you start to build apps for all different types of use cases, that we give you everything you need to be able to build those apps. And like I mentioned at the top, there's a number of links here, so we'll try to paste these inside of the chat for you. There's overall Microsoft accessibility. Definitely check out that link. Again, we've done a number of things to try to help guide you. You can see on that top link, that'll bring you to that doc page that I showed off earlier. We have a whole white paper that's going to help you end-to-end build accessible apps and help you think through, especially as you start to build some of these. We have a few videos that we'll also paste in here, some great breakout sessions to kind of walk you through and show you some of the best practices there. And then also, if you do find anything, we have a few things that are going to help you there. So we have some links for the 508. You can click on that link. We also, if you discover anything or you want help, we have the Disability Answer Desk, so EDAD. That's a great resource to be able to go in and either provide feedback of something that maybe isn't working as you expect, or something that you'd like to see, and that goes directly to us as a product team. So that's another awesome resource there, with being able to just, we try to, again, give you everything you need to build the apps that you need to. The other one I wanted to share is, if you think this is interesting, if you haven't used Power Apps before, we have a number of resources to just get you going. So we have learning tips online, we have learning content, which is great. And it's pretty easy here to get started. So you can go to powerapps.com and log in. And again, start to see, and there's a few links here, just what other customers are doing. We have things like app in a day sessions, so you can start to kind of walk through and do a guided day-long session of building your first app, maybe building your first Power Automate flow. And a few templates, like was mentioned, Steve mentioned, that are going into GCC High. So we have a lot of pieces to help you get going, and really just encourage you to get started. You know, the best way to start to solve some of these problems for your users is just to do it. You know, get in there today, this afternoon, maybe tomorrow. Build your first app. Try to experience that if you haven't done that before. I think you'll see how easy it is and how approachable it is to be able to build an app. So with that, Steve, I'm going to turn it back to you before we go into a deep dive session of questions.
All right, great. Thank you, Evan. Give me 1 second. I'll get my screen shared here. So really quickly, I wanted to announce we're going to have our next month's event. It's going to be Wednesday, April 20th. The theme of this is going to be all around Power Platform for developers. If you're a developer and you're looking to figure out how could you possibly extend the Power Platform, what are the integrations, what are the points of extensibility, this is going to be the session for you. We've got Dave Milton, who is a Power Platform Global Black Belt Director, and he's going to be speaking all about this topic next month. We'll get the registration link sent out to you all shortly after, once we also provide the link to where you can watch this recording on demand after the fact. But mark your calendars for that. That's going to be a great session.